Hello, pursuers. Welcome to another episode of the Pursuit of Happiness podcast. I am your lovely podcast host, Naz Kazimi. Let's get into the Real Housewives of Rhode Island now. Don't forget, I'm a little bit behind, so these are going to be the last two episodes. Yesterday's, I'll recap it later on this week, okay? We're going back to the episode where Dolores visits Liz, and everyone really is feeling bad for Rula. She's in a really tough spot with her husband. Liz is also upset with her reaction to Kelsey. This is when the night before they were having the party and the whole Dino is there, etc., etc. I love saying etc., etc., I realized. Now, the previous episode that ended with Liz freaking out at Kelsey, Liz confirms that Kelsey and Dino had a romantic relationship. If you go back a few weeks before I started my move and I had to drive from the Baja back to Canada, I did put out some podcast clips that went over this, okay? Liz confirms that Kelsey and Dino had a real romantic relationship. Kelsey says it didn't last too long. All Kelsey said that it would be too much if she goes down to the seawall. And to be honest, the cameras weren't even close by. There were mics, but the cameras were really far. Like, you don't really see the cameras close up. You could tell that Kelsey was talking genuinely to Liz, not being performative, but Liz still freaked out. Mixture of alcohol. I think Liz just kind of rubbed her the wrong way. And now that we're finding out that perhaps Kelsey had a relationship with him and it didn't last long, it seemed like he was kind of overbearing, overprotective, controlling. So I think mixed with the alcohol and also like brand new, there's cameras around. So sometimes people's intentions, although they're your closest friends, are questioned in that moment. It just seemed that perhaps Liz, it just came out the wrong way. Like, she was already in a headspace. She already has feelings around what Kelsey's telling her. So it came off a lot more stronger than Kelsey had intended, you know? Liz admitted that she was triggered because the situation was so emotional for her and she was drinking. Exactly what I just diagnosed. All right. Now, Ashley, Rosie, Kelsey, and Alicia, they all go to the beach. They start talking about Brian because they're kind of recapping the whole Brian and Rula situation. Because at that party, what had happened was Rula and Brian sat down with Joe, Ellen, and Gary. And they were talking about really why Joe Ellen is kind of spreading these things about Brian. I had like a brain fart just there. I'm so sorry because I was trying to figure out, wait a minute, is it Jerry or Gary? No, Joe Ellen's husband's name is Gary. So what had happened at that party, same party that Liz freaked out at Kelsey, was that Rula decided to talk to Joe Ellen because there has been tension between them. They were friends from the same circle. I think part of it also stems from the fact that Joe Ellen is getting firsthand information, and it happens to be true every time, from the Mistress. I heard her name was Beth, or something like that. Who cares about the freaking Mistress? Anyways, so Rula goes and sits down with Joe Ellen and they chat. And what I found weird is that, and I know I talked about this, and I'm just going to touch upon it. I just found it weird that Brian didn't really chat more. You know, he was kind of really quiet during that whole conversation. He didn't want to defend himself. Look, I thought that Gary kind of handled it like a champ. He's like, yo, you're calling my wife at her work. That's so weird. Like, even though Joe Ellen was a bit heated, Gary was still so calm. I feel like that would have put Brian a little bit more at ease, but he still seemed defensive, and I can't only help but think it's because, I mean, guilty conscience. Didn't Eminem say it best? Like, there's a guilty conscience there, you know? Like, you know what you're doing, and so does the rest of the world. Anyways, Ashley, Rosie, Kelsey, and Alicia, they all go to the beach, you know, chat, get to know each other. Brian, and they bring up the fact that Brian had apparently cheated on his first wife as well. And that happened to be Alicia's Spanish teacher. And he cheated on Alicia's Spanish teacher with Rula. I mean, if this city could not get any smaller, like, I just don't know. So the group agrees that he's a cheater. Great, cheater. Kelsey explains that all she told Liz was don't go to the seawall, and Liz freaked out. And at this time, kind of everyone pipes in. They didn't say anything negative about Liz, but they're just like, that's just the way she is. She does freak out. She's, you know, reactive. We've always, and Alicia was saying it more. She's like, we've always been a little bit scared of her. I never heard Alicia say that we let her get away with it or whatnot, but, you know, she's just a lot more reactive, and we all just kind of, that's just her personality. Anyways, we'll get into why I'm kind of explaining that a little bit more. Another scene that happens is Joellen's sister Jen comes to help out Gary and the kids when Joellen is out of town because first season housewife, still kept her job. Good for you, Joellen. Joellen confirms that Jen and Gary never had sex in high school because remember, Gary dated her sister, Jen. He might have copped a feel, she says, but she's very secure with her sister and Gary being together. And now that I see Jen, yeah, I think Joellen is good. And it has nothing to do with looks, but you could just tell the energy between them. It's a lot more like family and comfortable family rather than I have an eye for you. You know what I mean? Like, trust me, I'm the number one person that looks at a man and what he's looking at when he's in a room. He was not looking at Jen that way. So now I understand why Joellen is totally comfortable with that. And by the way, she got the guy. She's the one that has 2 kids with him. He married her. You know what I mean? So, although cheating can happen in any family, but, and I don't want to say, well, just because they're Italians, they won't do it. I mean, but, you know, strong family values also. And she has the guy now, you know, it's nothing to worry about. You can just feel the energy is very family-like, not affair-like, you know? Another scene that happens is that Alicia's aunts come to her house with lots of Italian bakery sweets. Yum. And I'm dieting right now for the summer, so yum. I'm also Persian and we have such good sweets. So, anyways, her grandpa had, I think it was Pender's Superior Bakery and all the aunts worked for him. And while the aunts are over, Alicia also invites Liz, Ashley, and Rula over with the aunts. I really do like Ashley. I've been, and I know that I'm a couple of episodes behind, but I do hear people saying that she's kind of, you know, awkward and not meant to be there. And I think Ashley has a right to be there just like any other of the girls. You know, she has a family, she has a husband. She's a little bit more like down to earth in real life. Like, she's an influencer. She's trying to make money. Husband doesn't like his, you know, or not doesn't like, but it's just struggling with his business. They're kind of like in a limbo. Should we keep it? Should we not keep it? 2 young kids. And also I know that Ashley she's not originally from Rhode Island. So I know Jared's family's from there and he's there and they can help, but also she's not. So we love the lavish and we love the expensive things, but if anything, I think Ashley is almost the more relatable one because of her lifestyle, you know? So I think that she does have a right to be there. I just think that she's a little bit more, I think that she also feels like she shouldn't be there, just like what the audience seems to be putting on her already, but she shouldn't feel that way because this is a first season. She has every right to be there. And you know what? People can learn. People love to see conflict resolution, whether it's amongst the friends or amongst the partners. And I think that her showcasing what they're going through without any hesitation is just such a, and I don't mean to get too deep and psychological. I know a lot of people watch these shows just to kind of have a good time, but you can't help but think that this is like part of it is real. Like, this is real life. This is what people go through, you know? So it's nice to see that part of her. I love it when they're relatable. When they're way too out there. And listen, I liked Diana from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, but when they're a little too out there and they don't understand like just regular people things, whether by choice or they're just, you know, too bougie now at this point, it kind of makes it hard to relate to them. Hence why it was hard to relate to Diana. Hence why she wasn't there anymore, you know? And look at Kyle. Kyle's super rich. Kyle Richards from Beverly Hills. And I'm bringing this up because it seems like Beverly Hills is like the cool kids at school. Everyone loves Beverly Hills, you know? But Kyle is super duper rich, but she's relatable right now because of what she's going through with Mo and the kids growing up. So when it's relatable, it's a lot more easier to like the person. And that's when you have a lot more like of the audience siding with them or even disagreeing with them. All that engagement, it just triggers emotional feelings from the people outside watching in as well. And again, that goes back to relatability, you know? So I feel that already with Ashley. So again, Alicia has Liz, Ashley, and Rula over with the aunts. The aunts give advice that I would give. All men cheat. So you either leave or you learn how to deal with it. I agree with this. I'm not saying that, okay. I need to like backtrack this. All men cheat. All of them. It's a biology thing. I was also in sex entertainment in my 20s. I'd never seen a man or was with a man that was seeing one of the girls that I worked with or myself and they wanted to leave their wife. In fact, they all stayed with their wives. So take it from someone that was in that industry. They don't do it to leave their wives. They do it to stay with their wives. Many different reasons. Not as sexual. They're just super horny men. They're having issues. Look at Kristen and Luke. Someone just gave birth. It's a lot more biological for men than it is for women. I would say that I'm a pretty sexual person, like, toys, everything, And I know some women that don't at all. And I'm like, don't you ever get that urge? And, TMI, and if there's kids in the room, take them out now. But it's like, don't you ever get that urge? And a lot of people will be like, ew, that's weird. What urge? I'm just a lot more in tune with my sexuality. For men, it's like they have to. Like they have to have that release. If they don't release, it's a biological thing. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I just know. Okay. I had a younger brother. It's just one of those things that it's like if they don't do it, they have to. Whether they do it themselves through masturbation or they found a woman to do it in. And a lot of times, the men will, if they're, good at that time, will do it themselves. But if there's something in front of them that is willing to do it with them or for them, they'll take that opportunity. And that's where I feel that men, as a human species, are different than men in the animal species. The animal species, based on instinct. As humans, we have that one extra thing called a conscience. So should you not be cheating on your wife just because you want to get it off? Of course, you should not be. But they all do. So I digressed there for a little bit, but I'm just saying, and I'm sorry if that's a TMI conversation. They do. And that's how you have some of the women, and for example, like Melissa Gorga and Joe Gorga. And I love using the housewife analogies and the examples. They have a great sex life from what they tell us. And I'm just basing it, my opinion, on what I've been told through the shows. I'm not going to go and dig and speculate. I don't have time for that. I can only watch what is in front of me and base my opinion on that. They do choose to go on reality TV shows, but they have a great and healthy sex life. And in that case, he won't go stray. Now, do men look at other women? Do they give them attention? Do they perhaps sometimes lead into emotional affairs? Of course. And so do women. But right now we're talking about Brian and Rula. And the advice that the ants are giving Rula, you can either leave or learn how to deal with it. But they all confirm that men cheat and wander, and they've experienced it too. And they're the old school generation. Here's my next kind of critique, and I'm going to get some flack for this, but Rula, I can tell that she has reservations and that she even thinks to herself that Brian is still going at it, And maybe not with that girl, but, strays a little bit, okay? Part of it, I think, is that she's just on him about it too much. And she has every freaking right to be. But that's also a turn off for men. So already, red flag, get rid of him. He's the one that put himself in that situation. Now he's getting mad that you are questioning his every move. From what I see in the tabloids, allegedly, well, actually, no, I think it's real, but I'm just going to say allegedly because I don't have all the facts in front of me. He had put a tracking device in her car. So talk about being guilty. And when people always say things to you, like they're projecting from a place because they know. For example, like I'm in the bodybuilding community and people will be like, oh, what are you on if I'm looking really good? But those people that ask, what am I on, are typically men or women that take steroids themselves. So they're asking me what I'm on as if I'm taking steroids too. But because they're coming from a place that they know. Someone that's brand new in the bodybuilding community that sees me in the gym, they're like, holy shit, you look so good. What have you done? Like, what did you do? What did you change your diet? Are you exercising more? How often are you coming to the gym? Are you doing Pilates? They ask more questions like that because the steroids thing is on at the back of their mind. Now we have the whole peptides craze. So if I'm looking a certain way, people will be like, what peptides are you on? Like, people only do it from their knowledge of what they know. So if Brian is putting, if he's putting the tracking device in Rula's car, that's because he's coming from a place that he knows that, that's what He's coming from an insecure place. You only accuse people of cheating because you're a cheater too. You know, have you heard of that expression? That's the only thing that could come to my mind. And I'm like, if Rula has all this money, she's great financially, there's doubt in her mind. Like, why live a life like that? Even from the filming, and I'm going to jump ahead here. We're like, what? I'm a little bit behind in the recap, but we're a couple episodes in. She halfway shows up for some of the events and half not. It's like, why do you want to live a life like that? And like, you have a choice. You can leave. I know you have young kids, but they're not that young. You're financially stable. You can do it all on your own. And as everyone says, he's not that good looking. Like, let the other one have her. Like, she's so beautiful. And I just wish she was a little bit more secure with herself to want to leave him. But then you have some women that want to make it work. And you have to respect that as well. So I can only respect her wanting to make it work with mine. It's not my marriage, and anyways, so that's that, and I love that. And everyone after that whole episode, everyone's like, "Yeah, Alicia's aunts their own show." It's always like, this is why we love these housewife shows. Family, 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 as Teresa Giudice would say. We get to Liz cleaning out the boat that Jerry sold. This was the same boat that he did the sport fishing on. Kelsey comes by to give her a hand to kind of unpack the boat, and Liz immediately apologizes to Kelsey, and Kelsey says that she accepts the apology, but she also explains her side. She says, I'm coming from a place, although she said it very kindly and she wasn't mean at the party. Liz just kind of really took it the wrong way. Kelsey does say that she's a little bit more overprotective of Liz because her experience with Dino wasn't good. So again, Kelsey's coming from a place where she had a negative experience with this guy. So she's trying to say, like, just don't always be around him, But in that same breath, Kelsey has to realize that, and again, I'm basing my opinion on what is being told to us, that Liz doesn't have a sexual or romantic relationship with Dino. So maybe Dino is like that with people that he's romantically involved in or sexually involved in, So I think she has to give Liz the benefit of the doubt here and trust Liz's judgment. Thank you for being a good friend. It seems like Liz is kind of, it's crossing a boundary, borderline trigger for Liz. So we're just going to keep it neutral, right? From the explanation that Kelsey did give, she did hook up with Dino, but he's very controlling. And aside from Dino, it seems like Kelsey doesn't usually date men exclusively. So he wanted her to be with him exclusively. She's mentioned before that she had another boyfriend before she had this one that she's with now for 10 years. And she's always kind of like been polyamorous. And it's a pattern with her. It's interesting for me because I'm so like, you can't even look look on the ground, pretend to be blind, So I admire people that are just so, that when they are polyamorous and the man also is dating other women, it's not a reflection of them. It's just a choice that they've agreed on. Because I would feel like if a man stepped out on me or like, and we're both doing it, but like, I would feel like, oh, so he likes her more. Whereas like, she doesn't see it that way. She's just like, this is the way it is. It's so interesting to me. Anyways. I love dissecting stuff like that. All the ladies except for Joellen, because she's out of town, meet up for an event. They're going rail biking. They're drinking as well. It's so funny. I'm not a drinker. I've been sober for over 5 years. So it's interesting to me when I see all these events, people drinking. I'm like, does it really make it funner? Because I would always I could not exercise and drink at the same time. Not that you exercise and drink, but the years that I was a drinker, I wasn't an exerciser, it doesn't combine well for me. I'm an addict as well. So anyways, they rail bike to a spot where they have charcuterie and like a fire and they're by the ocean. They chat about Alicia talking to Bill about her finances. She's not even on the house deed and the will for the house. So if anything were to happen, and I'm sorry, I'm saying this wrong, prenup. So if they were to split, she wouldn't get anything, not from the house. And it's like, dude, and this is what all us women think. It's like, you raised his kids. So how can you not even be at least on the house? Like, get half of it. Like, you guys can sell the house. He gets half, you get half. He can keep all his fucking money bellies. You get, or just keep the house in general. He keeps his money. Like, I don't know. It's just weird to us. And she has never questioned it. So the girls are kind of, I don't want to say putting ideas in her head, and it has nothing to do with Bill. It has to do, two things can be true at the same time. It doesn't have to do necessarily with Bill, although this is the arrangement that her and Bill are in, but it can do with them caring for their friend and being like, you need to look out for yourself for the future just in case something happens, Then as they're talking, Ashley admits that she's a little bit intimidated by Liz, and Liz does admit that she's a bit standoffish, but it's because she's really sensitive and doesn't want to be hurt. And I just did this whole thing about people that are emotionally sensitive on the Ladies of London recap that I did, because you have Mark Francis and Margot, and they're both very big personalities, but very, very extremely sensitive. I'm the same way. I'm very a big personality, but I'm also extremely sensitive. Now, what degrees of sensitivity? That's individual based. Only the individual can gauge that. Some people are more sensitive about certain things, but the reaction that you get from, or how you're triggered, is a big reaction, and typically the more bigger the personality, the more sensitive, right? And that fits Liz perfectly. She's really sensitive. She doesn't want to be hurt. She's a little bit more guarded. And I can see that, it takes a very long time for people to, one of my best friends, after 3 years of running into her at the gym, we finally started talking like friends, so I get that. It could be a defense mechanism as well. But again, like I said, it's the biggest personalities, right? It's the one that walks into the room and is like such good energy. And you're like, I love that person. But you're like intimidated by them because of their energy, right? It also comes from probably wisdom and experience and all these kind of things that have shaped that person. Then they talk about Liz at the party, and Rosie brought up, since Alicia knows Liz the longest, that this is the way Liz is, but Alicia took it the wrong way. From what I saw, Rosie just meant to say that this is how Liz is. She loves hard and fights hard, but Alicia didn't like that. And I think it comes from she didn't like being the only one that was called out, because she feels like because she's the only one that's, and not that it was anything bad, I didn't gather that it was something bad, but because only Alicia said it, then it must be something negative in Alicia's mind. I don't know. I know a lot of other people are like, yeah, Rosie really threw her under the bus. Threw her under the bus for what? Alicia never said anything bad. She just said that this is the way Liz is. She loves hard and fights hard. And we just take a step back when she's in these moods. That's all Alicia said. But again, she didn't like it. I don't know, maybe they're drinking, or maybe she doesn't know Rosie that well. So sometimes when you're friends with people but not that good of friends, you are unsure of what their intention is when they say something. I don't think anyone was, especially Rosie, was calling Alicia out. Alicia just knows Liz the longest. So if you know her the longest, we would understand that this is how she is. She'll be upset in the moment and then she'll come around, which is it's exactly what Alicia said. And it's exactly what Rosie even said. She's like, isn't that what you said? That she kind of is more emotional? And then you could hear Alicia say, don't say that. Don't do that to me. You're a whore. You're this, you're that. Literally, maybe Rosie and Alicia don't know each other well enough, because Alicia felt Rosie was coming from a place where she wanted to intentionally hurt her and cause an issue between her and Liz. Again, I didn't see that. I saw exactly what Rosie was saying. Maybe because I'm watching it, so we see the flashbacks. We saw the original scene, and then right over it shows that, and I could tell that. Rosie couldn't even say that she said something bad because nothing bad was said. All she said was, didn't you say that? She loves hard and that's just the way that she is? I don't know what's bad about saying that. Is that just the way that she is? Regardless, they made up within 5 seconds. I had a feeling it had to do with the drinking. Rosie took it like a champ but see, Rosie knows that that's the way Alicia is. So even though Alicia was going off and calling her a whore and yeah, you're crying now and blah, blah, Rosie had it in her to forgive her, because she's like, maybe that's just the way Alicia is. She just kind of is very reactive, and then she'll calm down after. Speaks first, reacts first, and then realizes what she's done after, apologizes later. You know what I mean? But I thought that, and I do like Alicia, but that reaction sort of came from nowhere. Now we go on to episode 5, and Joellen is back, and Joellen and Liz go over to Alicia's house. We find out that Joellen's grandfather had passed away. So, condolences to Joellen. It's like she's gone and then all these things happen. Liz fills in Joellen that Rosie asked Alicia, why don't you say what you really said about her? I didn't see that. Again, I never heard Rosie say that. And Alicia says in a confessional, Rosie took my words and twisted it. But then again, no, she didn't. Not from what I saw anyway. I watched it a couple times just to make sure. So I think that, sometimes, and good thing it's recorded. I wonder what they'll say in the reunion, because it just seemed like it just really went off the rails there. They took it the wrong way. And even Liz repeating it back. Like, remember how we talk about it, and if you guys listen to my recaps of Ladies of London, how Micah reiterates something, and no shade to Liz or Alicia, but when Micah reiterates something, she really downplays it so that it doesn't cause an issue. I feel like this game of telephone here is like more along the lines of like, and not intentionally, for sure not intentionally, but just it causes issues the way that it's reiterated. But people can argue with me and be like, well, it started with Rosie. She shouldn't have said it. Again, I don't think Rosie said anything bad. But let's move on. They bring up Rula. They collectively agree that Rula doesn't want to know that Brian's still cheating. Because she consistently always asks, show me the proof if he's cheating. It's like, girl, what about that thing that you feel? Like, you know how you haven't completely forgiven him? Because it's in your gut that you think that he's still doing it. So what about that? Like, this is where, like, Rula being a smart woman in finance, beautiful, has all these things going for her. You can't be that dumb. You cannot be that dumb. There's another scene where Ashley goes to Kelsey's mansion to get her hair done. Yes, I had to mention that it's a mansion. Ashley wants to thank Kelsey for her services in turn for her hair being done for free, which it's typically how it goes on social media, and Ashley being an influencer. So if they get stuff done for free, they'll shout out the person that's done it. Like, I get lots of products, and lately a lot more products sent to me for free. And in turn, I get paid obviously a little bit too, but I post it on my socials. And typically it's a lot more fitness stuff because in my personal life, that's my niche. And on my personal socials, you'll see it's all fitness stuff. Influencers with lots of followers will receive either free product or services in return for posting about it. And surprise, surprise, the more high caliber the influencer or celebrities, they not only receive free product, but they also get paid for it. It's just the hierarchy of the influencer world. I by no means am on any caliber quite yet, but I'm just saying, like, because I do UGC stuff, which is user created content, they don't want to hire actual models. They want real life people. I get the free product plus I get paid. So this is just the influencing world. Okay. But as they're talking about it, Kelsey says that, she did something for Rosie as well. And Rosie likes to shout out every single person that does her glam, her makeup, her outfits, everything, where she goes and eats, her nails. But the one person that she's never shouted out was Kelsey. There's some weird animosity between Kelsey and Rosie, and I'm excited to see it play out. A lot of things, and now that I'm in like the kind of like the social media world of reality TV, I see a lot of comments like they look alike. Someone needs to put a nose ring on one of them so that I can tell them apart. I don't think they look alike at all, just because they got long brown hair. It's kind of like a prejudice, to be honest, to say that, but that's just like saying every blonde looks the same. Just because they have long brown hair doesn't mean they look the same. They have very distinct looks, eyes. They even talk different. I feel like Rosie's a little bit more heightened, more excited. Kelsey's a little bit more like down to earth and really like, soft. But yeah, it's just so Kelsey, this has been festering in Kelsey that Rosie won't shout her out. Which gets interesting. We'll get to where it gets interesting because Rosie was also invited to a boat cruise for a friend of hers named Jack, a gay couple. Literally all the girls are invited there as well because Jack and his partner know all of them. So even Rula, okay? While they're on the boat, Kelsey brings up to Rosie why she never posted anything about her hair services, and even a shout out would be nice. And then Rosie's defense is because it wasn't free. I'll shout out the free services, but if I paid for it, it's just like when you go eat at a restaurant. You're not always going to be posting as a food blogger where you're going to go eat, especially if you've paid for the whole thing. But if a restaurant invites you in, says, hey, we're going to invite you for a free meal. If you could just shout us out and show the meals on your social media, tell them to come here, that'd be great. We'll cover the meal, So I get that. She went in as a paying customer. Not every single paying customer is going to shout out their hairdresser. Not every single paying customer is going to shout out the restaurant that they eat at or the coffee shop that they go to, If it's an exchange for something, typically, yeah, like they will if like the coffee shop or the restaurant or the hair salon does it for free or the glam does it for free, yes. That's kind of like grounds, and it's just etiquette, like social media etiquette and influencer etiquette to shout that person out, especially if it's for free. But if you're paying, that's up to you, your discretion, Sometimes you'll be like, like when I would get my lashes done, I'd always shout out my lash girl. Not every single time, once in a few months. Only because they look so good, I felt so good. I was like, she does such a good job, shout out my girl. But Rosie went in as a paying customer, and Kelsey had never asked her to do a shout out. Now Kelsey comes back with, you shout out everything and everyone, but I'm the only single person you've never shouted out. Now, this goes back and forth between them. Rosie thinks that she wants to use her for clout. Again, there's something there between these two that hasn't surfaced yet. If it's because perhaps they do kind of look alike and people are comparing them all the time, it's just such intense beef. And I feel like there's a layer that we haven't been privy to. Because, like, who cares? You know? Joellen decides that it's better if she meets with Rula one-on-one without the husbands, because she wants to have a chat with Rula. They were friends. I'm pretty sure Joellen seems like a good person, and so does Rula. I'm pretty sure Joellen doesn't want to have this beef lingering. They're on a show together now. She wants to, when they're together, for it to be nice and not awkward. So she tells Rula, because she wanted to do it in private, that the mistress has contacted her and showed her pages and pages of text with Brian, and it's still ongoing. Joellen informs Rula that he grabs the mistress a coffee every morning, but Rula denies that and defends him by saying that she had a GPS tracker on Brian. Okay. This is probably when the whole GPS thing happened that they did to each other, and then Brian got arrested for it, which is so weird, because wouldn't she have to press the charges on him? This is where, like, it's one thing if you want to stay in your marriage and protect it and work on it, but it's another thing when all signs point to you having a visceral reaction, you having this external reaction to things that are going on, and you're still trying to pretend that that's not happening. That's where I have an issue with Rula. I feel bad for her, really. I feel like he's brainwashed her to think that nothing's going on. Rula says that she has a GPS tracker on him. He's at the gym every morning, and he hasn't spent a night away from home. My love, you're literally living in denial. Men can go to the gym and the mistress could be there and they could cheat in the car. Like, he does so many things throughout the day. He could meet her at a restaurant. Like, they could do it in the car. Like, I don't know. It's just, there's so many possibilities. They could go to the back room where they know somebody that works, like, she could come to his office where he works and, like, do it on the couch that's in his office. But, like, Rula thinks that just by having the GPS tracker on him and the fact that he's at home every single night doesn't mean that he doesn't do anything throughout the day. And I think that's where she's kind of like putting her blinders on. She says that this excuse right here had me rolling. She says that the mistress is really good at photoshopping and editing text and pictures with AI. Like, this is what she believes. This is how in denial she is. Like, bitch, I don't even care if there's AI or Photoshop. If I see a text that appears, like, look at the text first. You're in finance. You can't be that dumb. And if that looks sussy to you, I mean, it's just, I just can't, And I'm in tech, and I know that it's a little bit more difficult than it seems. It's easy. It's very easy, but it's also a little bit more difficult. And it's kind of obvious when things are altered and, just straight denial. I think what she needs to do is hack into his iCloud, get into his emails, follow him rather than just, I don't have a GPS on my daughter, but you don't know who she's talking to and who she's with. I mean, I do, but I'm just saying, like, you just don't know, right? Like, I don't know who she's talking to every second of the day, but I do have a GPS tracker. Like, I have her phone location. It's just giving so many blind spots that she's trying to just ignore. So that conversation went like that, okay? I think Joellen did something good, bringing Rula and just talking to her by herself without bringing it up to the other girls, telling her one-on-one. Now, they all have an event to go to a polo match, okay? So they meet at Billy's restaurant, which is Alicia's fiance. Just as Rula and Brian arrive, they have to leave because apparently Brian's dad is taking Brian's mom to the hospital. Okay. So there's a bus waiting for them. And then they're like, okay, we're all going to go to the polo match all together on the bus. Rula and Brian can't be there, but they're like, we'll meet you after. And this is what I mean. Like, Rula's missing all this time filming. She's on this show. She has this great platform. Like, ugh. Anyways, when they called Rula from the bus, wondering how she is everything okay with Brian? Because even everyone was like, they were sending their best wishes. Like, we hope everything's okay with your parents, Brian, because he was there. She said that she was heading to the polo match to see them, and Brian was with his parents at the hospital. Literally 1 minute later, at that time, a mutual friend of Joellen and the Mistress messaged Joellen and said that Brian is trying to see the Mistress at that same time. So wait a minute, were the parents going to the hospital a lie? Because that's a fucked up lie, okay? Just to get out of or not get out of anything, but going and seeing the Mistress before going to the polo match. Like, it's just, I don't know, I would have stayed. Why did Rula leave him? That's when I would have stayed. See? She does everything opposite. Like, that's where you have to stay and make sure that it's correct. Anyways, at the polo field, Rula comes back with Brian. So now all of a sudden they're together again. So why did you guys even separate in the first? I'm so confused. Kelsey tries on Rula's wedding ring. They're all kind of joking around. They're having a good time. Brian says that his wedding ring's in the car. Really? Wait, why is your wedding ring in the car, Brian? Why'd you have to take it off? To jack off? I don't understand. Then this becomes a topic of conversation. And right at that time, Brian just can't catch a break. God's not working for you. God's trying to expose. The Mistress posts a photo in Brian's car 2 hours ago. Right at that time that they were kind of trying to figure out, and he got the text, or Joellen got the text that he was trying to see the Mistress. A little later than that, that's when the photo was taken and posted. Joellen breaks down the timeline beautifully. They leave the group around 1:15 as they were boarding the bus to go to polo. At 1:58, Rula calls and says that she's not with Brian. He's with his parents. 1:59, Joellen gets a text from that mutual friend that says that Brian's trying to go see the Mistress. Then at 5:15, they show up together at polo, and the picture of the Mistress and him pops up at Joellen's timeline. I don't like the way Brian spoke to Joellen, like blaming her. It's like, no, listen. Why are you blaming her? Your face is in the Mistress's photo. Okay? I'm sorry that this group of people, that the Mistress happens to have a mutual with Joellen. That's not Joellen's fault. If it was Alicia, he'd have a problem with Alicia. If it was Jerry, he'd have a problem with Jerry. My G, you're the one that's in the photos. Like what? She photoshopped you in the photos? That's just ridiculous. Okay? How is it Joellen's fault when it popped up on her Instagram timeline? It's not Joellen's fault. He's just looking so guilty. And if Brian can't understand, and even Rula, that Joellen is trying to help her as a friend, then they're guilty. Because if they weren't guilty, they would defend it rather than getting mad at Joellen. They're wasting so much time getting mad at Joellen and the wrong people. Like, they're getting mad instead of just defending it or clearing the air. It's just, it's giving guilty conscience. So that's where we left it off. I am going to give another recap for Rhode Island this week. Once I catch up with all the other shows, I think we have The Valley left and Summer House. Hopefully I can combine it into one episode because it's exhausting doing it all. And I have never hoped to keep it away this long again. Again, I was driving, so I couldn't. But I love Rhode Island. Rhode Island is giving. It's one of the best. And it's kind of making me excited for Jersey to come back. But I don't know if Jersey's going to top this time around because we don't know what we don't know. But I just can't imagine the drama being as intense. But anyways, great episode. Love Joellen. Love Liz. Feeling really bad for Rula. Hopefully, she figures it out soon. But yeah, guys, until next time, thank you, pursuers, for tuning in. Let me know what you think. I will be posting some podcast clips. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, all the fun things. Send me some DMs on the socials. Let's get chatting. Let's try to investigate this ourselves, Anyways, pursuers, have a good one. We will see you soon.